Hello. Good to see everyone this afternoon. Hopefully everyone is having a great day, inspiring conversations, learning a little, meeting people. I hope all of that is happening here. Definitely grateful to Stan and Aubrey for putting together this great event and to inviting us to be a part of it. I'm Susanna Pollack from Games for Change, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be talking to Deborah Papiernik from Ubisoft. Thank you. So we're going to be talking today, it's kind of a casual conversation around history, storytelling, cultural institutions, talking about why history and games, why storytelling, and why this combination is really powerful. I love museums. I mean, I grew up, who here didn't grow up and go to museums? It was the American Natural History Museum for me. That was it since I was 4, and I brought my kids there since they were 4. And it's an immersive experience. Wouldn't quite say it's immersive experience, but it's one that brings so many pieces of stimuli together. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the kind of progression of history from being, the progression of history and the progression of entertainment kind of is aligned from being kind of a passive one. When I walk through the museums, right? We walk through museums, you see something static on the wall. Maybe you're watching a video, so you see that, right? And we've been seeing this progression to interactive, to immersive, and that's the same thing that we've been seeing around media, and where you sit at Ubisoft as well. And I'm curious, Deborah, from your point, where's the draw in games with history? Where do you see that connection?
I think, humankind just thrive on stories.
That's it.
That's very, very specific. And the best stories, the myth, the legends, most of them are just rooted in history itself, just because history is full of character, art, architecture, events, animals, there's everything there. So yes, we can imagine new worlds, and there are fantasies that are fantastic, but it's already so rich in history that it would be a shame not to use history to do games. And with games today being the most advanced form of entertainment and storytelling, we do it differently in the way that's really engaging and interactive. For me, it's only normal that games use history to.
One of the things that I love about Ubisoft when I first learned about Assassin's Creed from this perspective is the fact that you have a franchise historian. And that combination about, authenticity, and I was wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about that connection and why it makes so powerful.
Yeah, from the start, Assassin's Creed being like a historical fiction, we've always made our homework. So people go and they dig about the real history. What happened, which character, what was daily life, what about the economy, the philosophy, the religion, everything about the specific period. And a games developer cannot do that by himself. They're not trained to learn about history. That's why they were helped by historians within the franchise, within the dev team. We also have a team at the headquarters who's helping all the games. And these people can also reach out to specific experts, academics. Like if you ask me to reach out to an academic, I have no idea where to find it, or a games developer cannot. But the ones within Ubisoft who have this training know exactly where to find the experts. And once we have all this material, we can then decide what we reproduce identically and where we keep it authentic, but maybe not 100% accurate all the time. Because we want to balance always between the interest of the gameplay and the historical authenticity.
I like to talk to game developers about what point they typically bring this perspective into the game development process. There are times when from a game testing standpoint, you'll have a group look at it and say what you think, and so but that's not how you approach it. They're part of the development team from the beginning.
Yes, definitely.
So they're embedded, and I think that's from it's a mutual respect between the historical perspective and the gameplay, and finding that balance.
Completely, because the idea with the game goes beyond entertainment. We also went with our games to spark the desire to learn more, to go beyond just the pure entertainment part of it. And thanks to games, teaching history has gone beyond the four walls of a classroom or of a museum. And we have beautiful stories, actually, of young people who just started getting interested in history just because of the games. And then they engage into history studies.
Mm-hmm. So I love this. So the organization that I work at is called Games for Change, and we focus on the possibilities and the purpose that games can have beyond the entertainment. And games like Assassin's Creed, I think, is such a great example. It was built initially, it's built for fun, right? It was built with integrity and cultural accuracy. And it did go on to inspire young people all over the world to fall in love with world history. And you noticed that, right? And I love the fact that you noticed that and then leaned into it. Right, and I'd love to talk more about Discovery Tour.
Yeah, so from the beginning of the franchise, because of the work that's put in creating the game, all the work with the researcher, all the research that we accumulate, we also wanted to give it back to the players, not just keep it for ourselves. So that we had the Codex, which is kind of like the encyclopedia in-game, and with Assassin's Creed Origins in Egypt, and then same thing with Odyssey in Greece and with Valhalla about the Vikings, we also decided to do a module that's separate. It's accessible for the gamers. They had this module as a DLC that they can play, and it's the world that we created, but then inside the world, there's no combat, there's no gameplay really. You can move around, you can do things, there's interactivity, but not gameplay per se. And then there's no story. There's no Assassin's Creed story to it, but you discover the world. So you just discover about the mummification process, for example, or about philosophy, about architecture inside the game. And for that, we work with historians and history teachers to make it really interesting. And it's several hours of content each time. It's very, very rich and can be used also in the classroom. The advantage of that is that you don't need to be a gamer to do it. So it's Assassin's Creed and all that work is not reserved to gamers now. And both the historians, the game developers, and the history teachers who grew up as gamers and who they're the ones who also pushed us and say, hey, give us a tool that we can use in the classroom.
Well, I'm a big proponent of using games in classrooms. Educators are challenged every day in engaging with students and keeping their attention. And if you can bring them, an experience and a way to learn that's interactive, they're going to respond. And we've seen that all over the world. And so you made that commitment now. So there are four games?
So the first three
versions.
Yeah, the first three were really playable on PC and console, but sometimes that's a limit for schools or for families who don't have a console or a strong enough PC. So the last one that we did was based on Assassin's Creed Mirage, about the Abbasid Caliphate, Baghdad, 9th century. And for this one, we went for a free app, iOS, Android, but also web app. This way we can cater to all the needs in schools, in museums, and families everywhere.
So we've talked about the ways in which Ubisoft have used authenticity and historians in building experiences that are played within the game. But I'd like to talk about how that's been expanded to beyond the game and how that's expanded to different environments, informal learning spaces, right? Like museums, which brings us back to my other favorite topic. how do you make that connection, and where do you see opportunities?
At the beginning, it started because we had the Discovery Tour. So every museum that was creating, I don't know, an exhibition about Egypt would reach out to us and say, hey, can we use the Discovery Tour? So we just gave them a free code and they would use the Discovery Tour. So it started like this. And little by little, by getting to know each other and their challenges and our willingness to also spread our games and content, etc., because we thought they were good, we also went and created more experiences that were more catered to their needs. So there are plenty of examples. For example, when there was the fire of Notre Dame, game, like people all over the world started sharing videos, souvenirs of Notre Dame, or the real visit at Notre Dame, but the gamers among them pulled out their Assassin's Creed Unity game and started sharing videos of the game. So that's really the emotion. So Ubisoft gave money for the reconstruction. We made Assassin's Creed Unity temporarily available for free. And I asked my team to pull out the 3D model of the cathedral from the game and create a VR experience, very emotional, just 5-minute, beautiful music from the very organ of Notre Dame, just for people to be able to visit Notre Dame and experience this emotion, even if they were not gamers. Yeah. And we even showed it to the people who were actually doing the reconstruction. So the architect, the stained glass makers, like everyone, they loved it. They all talked about emotion. And the Archbishop of Paris asked me if we could do a mass there. We didn't end up doing it, but it was the level of emotion, even though it's not 100% accurate.
I think that was the year that Games for Change gave you the Industry Leadership Award, because it wasn't that you reacted and built this experience. You already had this experience. It already was part of your values, right? Value system. Exactly. And how you approach creating content, that you were able to meet the moment, which is absolutely incredible. There's other projects that you've worked too, yeah?
So we went as far as co-creating an experience. For example, with the Arab World Institute in Paris, we co-created an exhibition about Baghdad during the Abbasid Caliphate. They had too few objects because Baghdad was completely burned down by the Mongols in the 12th century. There are very few objects. They couldn't do an exhibition per se. They didn't have enough. But thanks to Assassin's Creed, we were able to put the few objects that they had into context, show maps, concept art. We filmed videos inside the game to show different areas, the different jobs at Baghdad at that time. It was not a very big exhibition, but it was there for about a year, and they say it increased their visitorship by 20% because the exhibition was interesting. It had also the name Assassin's Creed, so it drew new crowds, etc. And they had to extend it because all the schools wanted to go. And the teachers were so happy too. When you can make everybody happy, engage, and learn, it's fantastic. It then extended to the north of France and we made it bigger. And there's a plan to continue it's going to come to the Americas in a few months. And be even bigger.
Before you click through, so this is our first conversation about the game leaving the screen and moving into a 3D environment, right? And interacting with the exhibit, right? And I think that's like a new form of exhibition design.
Yeah,
right?
But you can do it the other way around. Yeah. And I know you also have projects.
We do. We have engaged a lot with museums at Games for Change over the years. One of the things that we do is an ongoing program called Game Plan, where we actually work with, that's right. Before we get to that, where we work with museum educators on how to use games, game design, and game-like learning in museum environments. So it's not, yes, it could be an exhibit. It could also be ways to extend an education program by kids making games about an exhibit. And then there's also the opportunity to use game-like principles in designing museum exhibitions, right? To making it more playful or more interactive. And a very obvious one for children would be like a scavenger hunt, right? Throughout a game, throughout an exhibition. But we've been working with over 300 museums just in the US alone, from like the Met to, so art museums, history museums, and there's a real curiosity, I guess is my point. And there's a real curiosity to leverage this form of engagement into museum environments to attract younger people to come in. So I think you've nailed the model, like in this sense, and I know there's more to see. But I do want to talk to you about something we did with a museum in Oslo, which I'm really proud of. And this was a conversation that started with a museum. In this case, it was the Nobel Peace Center, which is a museum in Oslo that lives to support the Nobel Peace Prize laureates. And it came at a time where they were interested in a digital transformation. They wanted to take their exhibits beyond the four walls of the museum, and in this case, to reach young people. And we helped them with a game design, with a strategy to come up with what kind of gameplay and identifying who your audience they wanted to be and what context they wanted to play the game. So we landed on something for young people to play in the classroom. And we brought it to Minecraft, and with Minecraft of Education, which is a product that they distribute to schools all over the world, we came up with 3 sets of games. This set allowed kids to follow the lives of people like Malala, the Dalai Lama, and other Nobel Peace Prize laureates in this environment which they love. And this is being distributed through schools around the world. And I think we have a video.
One of the best things about playing Minecraft is that you get to build a world just the way you think it should be. Building a better world is possible in real life too. Find out what it takes to become an active citizen. Follow the stories of 4 groundbreaking Nobel laureates as you help them craft peace. Without further ado, Minecraft Education Edition and the Nobel Peace Center invite you to play active citizen.
So here's a museum that their objective was to bring the museum out into the world through interactive media. Which is one of many ways in which interactive media can support museums. And I think there are three sets of games, one about active citizenship, one about peace building, and another one's coming about dialogue that we're doing. And it's incredibly successful. We're meeting young people where they are, and they're being inspired. And the Nobel Peace Center meets their goals, which is they're reaching hundreds of thousands of kids that wouldn't be able to go into the footprint of the museum. Yeah.
I guess the important thing is when we talk to museums, or it's the same thing when we talk to documentaries, like more traditional culture, is to really engage in a dialogue where they understand this thing that we can bring. But if they come with a preconceived idea, if they come and say, we want to do something in Minecraft, maybe it's not the right answer.
Yep.
Or when they come to us and say, we want to do something in VR, I'd say, why? Like, why do you want VR? Have you explored all the options? And maybe VR is just not the best way for you. Maybe it's better to do large projections. We have beautiful images in our games that are rather accurate, that can serve your purpose, and maybe that's enough. Don't go too far in the tech. Remember that the tech is only the means. It's not because you have VR that you're going to attract more people.
No, exactly right. It's a open dialogue and understanding the needs, right? The needs and the capabilities and what they're looking, the objectives are. And I think you found a really productive way of engaging with different museum entities. And we've talked about this. Sometimes there's no answer. Like it's not to proceed, right? And that's okay too. But the partnerships that I think you've established are playful, they're fun, and people are learning things.
Exactly.
And I'd love to talk a little bit more about some of your more recent work. And I think this is, so moving on to, can we talk about Versailles? Is that where we're going to next? That's Versailles is not here. It's okay, we'll get there. Okay. Let's talk about this.
So for example, right now there's an exhibition in Paris at the Museum of Mankind about the mummies all over the world. And we just created interactive videos to explain the mummification process in Egypt. It's just 10 minutes, so easy. The interaction is the kind of interaction that your grandmother has when she wants to change the language on her Blu-ray or something. Like, so easy. But because there's interaction and because you can choose the agency that we add here and the nice images, just like create engagement and people are going to remember and they're going to talk to their friends and more people are going to come. So it's always the same thing. But technically, it's very simple. And on our side, it was very easy to do because we already had the content itself. Same thing when we worked with Versailles.
This is what I was getting to. This is my favorite.
Because like in the gardens of Versailles, there's no mediation. So we worked with them and we created an augmented reality app using the rabbits, the fun characters, and working with Versailles on the very content, like to explain the fountains, the work of the gardeners and everything. And then you interact in augmented reality with the fountains, the gardens and everything. And because it's the rabbits, well, it's always very fun. But there is learning at the same time. It's like edutainment on site.
But it's this combination of like unexpected, right? Like an unexpected fun engagement. But there's a connection. Like it works.
It works and it feels obvious.
And it feels obvious. Right.
Yeah.
Unexpected and obvious at the same time.
And another one that's coming in XR as well is it's going to be in a few months in Boston for the 250th anniversary of the US. We're developing 2 apps, one for the Boston Freedom Trail and one for the New York Revolutionary Trail, where as you walk the trail, you're going to have an app where through the app, you're going to see what it looked like 250 years ago. And that's using assets from Assassin's Creed 3 and Assassin's Creed Rogue. So that's, again, another way to contribute to celebration, heritage, and learning. And this at city scale.
So you're doing this in Boston with the Freedom Trail, but you're also doing it in New York.
Yeah, both. Both with different apps because different things happened there. One was more about the combat and one was more about the freedom. So it's not the same app in the 2 cities.
All right, you have to tell me later how to find it in New York because that sounds great. All right.
Yeah.
We only have a few minutes left.
Yeah, a few minutes. So just to go back to the discovery tours,
Yes.
sometimes that's still the answer. We don't always do things that are really catered to every museum. We continue to use the discovery tours. And for example, there's a system in France where they created, it's like a digital museum where they have the rights on all kinds of content from museums. And we gave them the discovery tours and Notre Dame in VR and other things. And there are already 700 locations in France. It's especially for places where they don't have a museum nearby. Like my kids in Paris can take the metro and go to the Louvre, no problem. But when you're in the suburbs or when you're in a small city, there's no museum. And this way, it's kind of like a field trip. You go to a place, there's also as a mediator, and there's plenty of content, including the discovery tour.
Yep.
So this is also, we still continue to do that.
Can I ask you what your favorite game to work on is?
Lately, like the last one that I worked on was Assassin's Creed Mirage Valley of Memory. So it's a title date for Assassin's Creed Mirage. The game was released 2 years ago, but for the 2nd anniversary, we developed an additional content that's set in Alula, in Saudi Arabia. Alula is like, I don't know if you all know about it, but imagine Petra in Jordan, the Nabateans, meets the Grand Canyon. So beautiful nature, incredible, like, looks like Bryce Canyon for some parts, it looks like the Grand Canyon. And on the other part, it's like Nabatean tombs. Very, very interesting. And it's the place where they have the most archaeological research today. And as we were developing the game, we were in contact with the archaeologists in real time. And they were making discoveries and they were making us change the name of the places in real time, like, oh, we just found something new. So that relationship was fantastic to shed light on a region that we didn't know and that the world just starts discovering, but like the work with the archaeologists. And another one that I
know we have to end with something super fun.
Another one that I love, like I talked about Versailles, but Versailles is more than just a one-off. I love it when we work several times. So, for example, the Art World Institute, we did 3-4 things with them. Versailles, again, it's not just the rabbits. I don't know, you all know Just Dance. And we created a map, a Versailles map inside Just Dance, where the choreographer of Just Dance worked with the choreographer of Versailles Spectacle, the spectacles, like the shows. He's the international specialist of menuet dance from 400 years ago, and with Baroque music. So I think we're going to leave you with Baroque music. This way, everywhere in the world, you can dance the menuet on Baroque music. This is also great for just French heritage to be spread all over the world.
This is so fun. Are we going to be able to? Yeah, here we go. Here we go. It's great.
And the great thing about this project is that there was really a very strong collaboration, and Versailles also accepted that Just Dance is tongue-in-cheek. And we're not being disrespectful to menuet dance or to Baroque music. We're just like making it accessible to as many people as possible.
Yes. I want to add that there's the integrity of the work that you've talked about with Discovery Tour, the humor in both, Rabbids and in Just Dance. But there's also the artistry and the beautiful images that you create. And I do think from a museum perspective, there's alignment in values in that. And I think that is, and I think it's fantastic that you've been able to find the museums have found you, because I know museums are coming to you asking for partnerships, and you've identified those museums where there is that fit, that cultural fit, that values fit, right? And artistry.
A lot of respect, a lot of collaboration, a lot of respect for each other's expertise. We're not doing work for hire per se, even if we get paid to do it, because it has value. So we should not do it for free, but we find ways to do it in a way that's accessible for the museums. The same thing when we sell also a lot of images to documentaries, historical documentaries. For example, a documentary about the role of women during prehistory. And it's illustrated by images filmed inside Far Cry Primal, which is a mature-rated game. But it ends up like 20 minutes of Far Cry Primal on primetime TV, on PBS, on France Télévisions, like everywhere in the world. And that's great. Like when you can reuse this content for educational purposes. I love it.
All right. Well, I do believe that this relationship with interactive media, history, obviously with storytelling, but in non-endemic spaces, right? It has a space, has a fit, and draw audiences in. And thank you for this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.